Okay, so the last lecture we have studied how I/O is to be done and what actually input output is, and then we have looked at one method called polling. And today we'll look at two methods called interrupt and DMA. And the last class on this topic will be tomorrow. We'll look at bus structure. Okay, of course, I have used the same set of references. I mean, I have used this book called Brandt and Hellron's book, but most of the contents have come from course 61C of Berkeley. And then, of course, one or two slides have come from Cornell University's lecture on IO by Professor Hakim Witherspoon. Okay, all right. And one diagram I have taken it from William Stelling's book. All right, so this was the structure of that we studied in last class. Computer in general, when we say computer, has few important parts. First is of course processor, which consists of data path and control, then memory. Now memory consists of main memory, which is DRAM, and then and of course cache, and then we have secondary memory. And then apart from, so this makes in general a processor. Okay, and processor connected to main memory and then disk and cache, of course. So cache and memory are not considered IO, wherein connection with disk is considered as input output. Okay, so like any other device, we treat disk as a input output device or external device. Okay, and then of course we'll have not looked at this architecture in detail, but remember class, in the first few classes we have, when we studied in general about what is inside a computer, we looked at concept of bus, right? So we will look at the bus in more details in the next class. But note one thing, that we have something called disk controller here. Okay, and disk is treated, is connected to IO bus, which is treated at the same level as USB control, USB drive or USB memory, or monitor, for example, graphics. Graphics adapter is there, and then the disk, and any other device like that one can connect here, say camera can also come here. All right. Okay, so we'll come back to this diagram little later, and note that in a system there are multiple buses. There is a system bus which is very high speed bus. Okay, it connects usually the register file to some components. Right here in this case, this is a hierarchical structure where we have a memory bus that's connected to system bus directly. Now main memory speed has to be very fast. Okay, hence it's connected with the memory bus. IO in general is slow, and then we don't use one bus to connect everything because that bus may become bottleneck. So these concepts we'll look at later, maybe tomorrow. Okay, then we have looked at this. The characteristic of different IO devices is very different. So in terms of data rate, and we see that keyboard is very slow. The data rate is very slow, wherein graphics display rate is very high. Okay, it's almost like 8 orders of magnitude difference between the two. So IO devices should be managed such that it should be able to, the CPU should be able to handle data transfer from slowest device as well as the fastest device. Okay, the first method we have seen was polling, and in that we use, each device has two registers, one control register and second is data register. Control register just has status bit which says whether data is available or not for reading, or device is ready for writing. Okay, it's just it gives some status about the device, and we usually through flag. And data register is actually the data contains the data to be transferred. So if you're reading from disk, then this register will contain the data that is to be read. If something is to be returned to say disk, then this register will contain the data that is to be written. All right. uh, okay, so this concept you have seen, so and a real life example of polling is that, let's take example of yesterday we discussed about say postman coming to an office, right, or your home. Now let's make little, let's think of a scenario wherein in a company you are the CEO, the chief executive officer, and then um, you are obviously precious resource, right? The salary of CEO is usually 1,000 times more than the lowest level employee. uh, 1,000 times higher salary CEO gets. uh, so time is very precious, right? That's the reason a CEO has many secretaries and so on, staff to manage the activities. Nevertheless, so here in this case you are the CEO, and you are using polling. And polling of what? I mean, you are getting a lot of communication in terms of couriers. So courier services guy comes, and he has no mechanism to tell you that he has come. So what you can do in such a scenario? You will have, and you don't want to miss that, because some of these couriers may carry very important business information or business data or maybe new order data. So you don't want to courier guy to go and lose the information. So and you don't know when the guy will come. Okay, so what are you going to do then? You will assume that what is the frequency of this courier guy, approximate it and say that the guy comes every 30 minutes. Okay, and then you have to go and check whether guy is there or not. Okay, if and the guy can only be there for small time. So now you have to adjust your frequency of going and checking for the courier depending on that service, that is the courier, right? uh, if he comes once in a day, and then you may go 5 6 times approximately and so on check. But if the guy, you are expecting huge number of couriers, then you will go every few minutes. All right, so this is not really desirable thing to do for a CEO. Okay, because you will, for this task, you will waste significant amount of time, because coming out of your cabin and going to gate to collect the courier may require significant amount of cycles. Okay, your 10 15 minutes will wasted every time you go and check. So this is not desired, but that's the one way of getting information. Similarly, devices, CPU needs to check whether the status information is 0 or 1. It means that if it is 1, then it means that device is ready to transact. And if so, then the write buffer will be used, right? I mean, the buffer will be used for reading or writing. So there's a method we have studied, and this is not very desirable and good method. Okay? It may work for say mouse kind of thing, which has very small amount of data transfer. But if the data transfer is very high, that of a disk, then this mechanism, CPU will waste as much as 30 to 40% time in just transferring the data for or handling disk requests, right? So it's not desirable thing. So what is an alternative to polling? So we know that now polling wastes a lot of process time or CEO's time. Okay, then why not the, instead of CEO going or you going every few minutes to check whether there's a courier or not. Instead of that, you, because you don't know the frequency of the courier guy, right? So ask him to ring the bell, okay, or give you a call or something like that. So basically whatever you are working, you will get interrupted, and then you will go and attend this guy, and then come back to your seat and start work, right? So what you have got is actually an interrupt, and then you handle the interrupt. Okay. Similarly, a device may, when suppose you know there is a mouse, and mouse has data, right? So the mouse can interrupt CPU that I have data, please handle my request. So CPU will stop whatever it is doing and start or run a interrupt handler, okay, or exception handler, and that handler will go and take the data from the mouse and then hand it over to CPU, and then CPU, once that's over, CPU can start the work. Okay. uh, so let's see how it happens, right? So in general, this we have two such, you know, things. One is called exception, the second is interrupt. Okay, both are both are used interchangeably. Say for example, so we use these terms when there is an unexpected event requiring change in the flow of control, right? It means that the CPU is executing instruction one after other, and something happens that may cause change in the flow of the execution which is supposed to do. Okay, so the event could be internal event. Say for example, you know, CPU is executing an instruction and it results into overflow. Okay, uh, or it can have some other kind of fault. Okay, and that is called exception. So it arises within the CPU because of undefined opcode, overflow, syscalls, or TLB miss. Okay, if there's a TLB miss, it means that mapping or mapping table or um or translate address translation table is entry is missing. It means that now from TLB, which is in cache, we will bring it from somewhere else, from main memory or secondary memory, right? So there will be an exception raised. Okay, similarly, there can be a segment fault or something which will raise an exception. Okay, this happens. In general, we use this term exception when the event is internal to CPU. Okay, and interrupt is when it is from outside. A disk may request that, you know, I have data available, please take my data or do something around it, right? Or there is some exception or some interrupt raised by because of some event. Say for example, temperature of the CPU or temperature of the chip suddenly goes up for certain reason, so it may cause an interrupt, and then the CPU will start handling that interrupt. Okay. uh, so interrupt is generally external because of external event to the current running program. All right. uh, and now dealing with interrupt or exception is will take some time, right? So it will actually cause some performance issues, right? Because now there is interrupt, and interrupt handling will take 300-400 cycles. Okay, so is going to take time, right? However, the frequency of interrupts will usually be less, because in case of polling, the CPU was going, or the CEO was going out very often because didn't want to miss the event. Okay, but here only when gets interrupted it has to attend it. All right. So all right, this is how interrupt will be handled. Okay, an external event happened. Now we can call this, in fact, we can call this also as internal event, right? Uh, like say exception. All right, so this is normal flow of the program, and at this point in time, let's assume an interrupt happens. So let's assume right now that an external device wants attention of CPU. The CPU will execute the last instruction, okay, and then jump over to interrupt handler. Now this interrupt will give some information. What is it about? What kind of interrupt it is? Who is causing interrupt and what it wants? And all this information will come along with the interrupt. And that interrupt information will pass on to interrupt handler, which will execute this, whatever is the demand of that interrupt. So maybe if it's a data transfer from disk, that transfer of whatever is will happen, and after that it's over again, the CPU will start execution from the next instruction onwards, like this one. All right. In case of CEO, uh, the interrupt comes from courier guy in any form, depending on the protocol. The CEO goes out and collects the courier, uses it, and then starts instruction. Next work, whatever he was doing or she was doing. All right. Okay, so these are the event that the steps that will be executed to handle exception or interrupt. Note that exception we use when there is an internal event. Suppose you part of your program is an opcode which is non-defined, undefined. Okay, and maybe compiler has made a mistake and there is some error and opcode part is garbled, then it will cause an exception. Okay, so when there is exception interrupt happens, so internal or external event occurs, what will be done? The PC and registers, the program counter register will be saved. We have seen how to do this. Okay, where it is saved? It is saved in stack area. Okay, we have studied that. And change the PC, the program counter is now goes to changes to start of the exception or interrupt handler. So interrupt handler is a routine or a process or a function. Okay, and then PC will be changed to the beginning of that. Okay, of course, what this is very simplistic, but also information will go what exactly is this interrupt about. Interrupt could be of various types, right? And various devices can do interrupt, so more information will go to interrupt handler. It will execute this code, and then when this is over, then control will go back to the program that was in execution. So in order to do that, its state is to be restored, which means that the PC which will point now to the next instruction to be executed, and all the registers that are there in data path will be restored. Okay, now exception can happen in the pipeline also. Okay, for example, there can be overflow because of floating point addition. Okay, and if such exception happens in pipeline, then there is a need to clean up of the pipeline. Okay, and so interrupt handler will do all that, or exception handler will do that. For example, it says a save PC and register, and then transfer control to handler, and it will flush the pipeline or stall the pipeline and do something. All right. Say for example, most common exception that happens in C program is segmentation fault or code dump. Okay, you would have seen that, and you will study this more in OS course. Okay, so coming back to interrupt. Okay, so we are talking very in general, a very high level. We are not going to details now. Okay, so interrupt in general is asynchronous event. That it means that while polling is synchronous, right? Every some time CO will go out to check the courier guy, but interrupt is synchronous. The courier guy can come at any point in time, and it will interrupt the execution of whatever CO is doing. Okay, so but this will require more information needs to be conveyed, what the interrupt is about and who is interrupting it, what services interrupt wants, and all that, right? Um, okay, so in general we can say it's asynchronous event, and it's not associated with any instruction, and it can happen at any point in time. It means it can happen while any instruction is in execution. Okay, while CPU is running something, and then exception can happen. Now, sorry, the interrupt can happen. I'm sorry. And but interrupt is because it's a external event, it does not prevent any instruction from running to completion. So CPU has now choice to complete the current execution of the instruction, whatever instruction execution will complete that and take up the uh, interrupt. Okay, so interrupt is an external event. It can happen at any point in time. Whenever it happens, then the current state of the process that's in execution is saved, like we have seen in case of jump and link instruction. And then control goes to the function that is calling here in this case interrupt handler. Interrupt handler will then process the request based on what the request is, and then when the execution is over, control OS will pass on the control to the same process which was in execution, and in order to do so it will restore the state of the process. It means the register will be restored from stack. So this diagram tells you about how interrupt happens. So this is normal execution that's happening, and external device is interrupting now. Here what will happen, the program will not go in this way. So state of the process will be saved like PC and registers into stack, process stack. Okay, and then control will go to interrupt handler. Where is interrupt handler or interrupt service routine is here. So the control, so now we will say PC and jump to interrupt handler or interrupt service routine. And then when it will perform the transfer, or when we are doing this transfer, for example. And then what will happen now? When this is over, control will go to here, and then next instruction will be executed. All right. Okay. So last class we have looked at two examples, and we have seen how much time is spent in doing a polling, right? So now here look at the similar example. Now we are using here interrupt. Okay, and assume the following properties. So each transfer from disk, whenever there is an interrupt to CPU and it has to handle the disk request, okay, and each time the CPU will spend 500 clock cycles for each transfer. Okay, and now assume the disk throughput is 16 megabits per second. Okay, it means that there's a maximum rate it can transfer. Okay, so this is the rate at certain point in time. Okay, for a duration, let's assume. Okay, and then disk interrupts happen after transferring 16 bytes. Okay, it okay, after every 16 bytes it has available and transfer, then it will request another interrupt. Okay, it means that whenever 16 bytes are there in its buffer, it will interrupt the processor, and processor is running it at 1 gigahertz. Now disk is not running all the time. Okay, like in your laptop also, disk runs only for a small part of time, and let's assume that it's running only 5% of time of the program. You're running a program and only 5% of time the disk is required. Okay, so we need to find out what is the overhead or what percentage of processor is consumed in the disk. So we can see now, So this is the data rate, and okay, so 16 megabits per second, and 16 bytes we are transferring each interrupt. So when you divide 16 megabytes by 16 megabyte to byte, you will get so many number of interrupts. It means it will be 1 million interrupts will be there, right? Okay, and 5% of that, so that's the maximum that can happen, but disk is running only 5% of time. Okay, so effectively we have 50,000 interrupts per second. Okay, and each interrupt takes how many cycles? 500 cycles. So overall number of cycles you take will be 2.5 into 10 raised power clock cycles per second. Okay, so overall percentage will be this divided by total number of clock cycles per second will be 2.5%. So it means that only 2.5% time of CPU is going to handle disk request. Okay, all right. So okay, disk request. Okay, so this is okay. 2.5% is still high. Still high, right? It means that only for handling one device is spending 2.5% time. All right. So it is much better in case of IO. In case of polling, we have seen it. CPU's 40% time goes into it. So if there are multiple devices, then what will happen? CPU will busy doing IO. Okay, if it uses interrupt mechanism, right? And this is not good. This is not good, right? So what can be next method? All right. So we know that this is not good because for example, in disk can transfer only certain bytes, and every time there is certain bytes available, CPU will be interrupted. Okay, and so we can see that if you are CEO, would you like to go every time the courier guy comes in? No, your time is expensive. Every time you are wasting 10 minutes, equivalent to 400-500 cycles of processor for just doing this work. What can be an option? What is an option of this problem? What is the solution of this problem in real life? If you're the CEO, what will you do?
Sir, we hire a gatekeeper.
Absolutely right. Very right, right? So you have an assistant, but still you want to see what is there, right? Suppose you have a courier to send. As a CEO, you can give it to your assistant and say that send it. And once the guy sent it, then you'll inform the CEO, yeah, I have sent it. That's it. The work is done. If CEO has to receive a packet, okay, CEO will come to know that there is a packet. It will say to secretary or assistant, please go and pick up my courier. So the guy will pick up the courier and give it to CEO, and then and inform the CEO that I have received the courier and here it is, right? So same thing we do it in computer. CPU is not totally involved in the transfer. It knows the transfer is happening. It will initiate the transfer, but give responsibility to its secretary. Okay, and that we call it a DMA, direct memory access. So transfer data between IO and memory. Okay, IO means IO device and memory without process control. Ultimately, processor has to keep the data in memory. See, when we are CPU is reading disk, okay, it's trying to get some where CPU cannot. CPU is what we have seen. It's ALU plus few registers. It has to keep the data whatever is receiving into the memory. So it's basically in between a person who will receive it and send it to memory. It's like the CEO has to collect the courier and finally give it to secretary to put it into a shelf. Okay, So that is unnecessary, right? And that the transfer from disk is usually large in terms of blocks. Okay? Say for example, we have seen in case of virtual memory, minimum transfer between disk and main memory is a page, which is usually 4K byte. Okay, all right. So only interrupts the processor when done. So all right. So basically, processor is not controlling the transfer, but when the transfer is over, it will be informed the transfer is over, right? So let's look at this diagram. So what here we have shown is programmed input output, right? Like polling or interrupt that we have seen. First method we have seen is polling, second is interrupt, where the device here or disk will interrupt the CPU, and now this CPU will, the CPU will transfer it to memory. Okay, and read from memory, because CPU reads from memory. CPU does not read directly from whatever comes from disk. Okay, so CPU will be just a person who will just transfer uh, the data coming from disk to RAM. So instead of that, what we can do is that, okay, we can, of course, this is a controller. Okay, so directly, why not directly data can go to RAM? Okay, so the CPU can tell now, of course, do something, but it will not be involved in the data transfer from external devices to RAM. Once it comes to RAM, of course, it can read, but in the process, it will take part by giving instruction to somebody in between, like this here controller, to do the job on his behalf. All right. So now we can see that this is the communication rate. Say for example, disk communication. Disk is faster and faster and communicating more and more. So the communication rate is going up as a result of that. And this is CPU usage. So if there is no DMA or direct memory access, then the CPU usage will be very high. It will go up significantly just to do data communication. Okay, so here what we show here is the CPU usage for data transfer activity. Okay, and with DMA, of course, it will be consumed because it will be notified or it has to initiate that. Okay, but that effort will be very less compared to this one. Okay, all right. So now here comes into picture DMA controller. We have not explicitly said here this is a say kind of DMA controller, and the CPU can tell DMA controller to read or write. Okay, it will give the device address. See, because we know that each device is memory mapped. Okay, so CPU know that disk, what is the address of disk. Okay, because what we are doing is nothing but memory read and write by these operations. It will give so it will give the starting address of memory block of data for data. So from the disk we are reading, and then the block of memory, it will have some address. If you have gone through previous one PPT I have sent, you will come to know what it is. Okay, and then we'll say how many blocks to be transferred, how much data is to be transferred, and the direction of the transfer, right? I mean, whether it's to be main memory to disk or disk to main memory, right? That information will come. Okay, so once CPU tells the DMA controller, it gives all this information and do the task, CPU goes on to whatever it's doing. Say for example, it's running a program, and then there is an instruction that needs some data that's in memory disk. So CPU will give instruction to DMA controller to do this job and start doing something else if it cannot move forward, right? So it carries on with other work. DMA controller will do this work. Okay, and then it will DMA controller will send an interrupt when it's finished. It will interrupt the CPU to tell that now job is over. All right, so that's the step. Now DMA controller could be part of the device or it could be external. Okay, so we can use one DMA controller for multiple devices, or we can do, disk may come with a DMA controller built into it. Okay, so there are various configuration possible. Here it shows the DMA controller to control multiple devices. Okay, so CPU, first step is that CPU programs a DMA controller. It tells the DMA controller what is to be done. It gives the address, count, and what activity is to be done. Okay, and then DMA controller in turn requests the disk, for example. Okay, so there is something called disk controller along with disk. Each device has a controller, so disk has a controller, so it will request the transfer of certain amount of data from here, or number, it will give the block number of and how many bytes is to be transferred, and then it will, this controller here will read the data from here and send it to main memory. Okay, and when this is over, okay, then this controller will know it. When the transfer is over, it will send ACK to DMA controller, which in turn will ACK CPU. Basically, CPU will, suppose CPU wants some data, it will inform the DMA controller. DMA controller in turn will inform the disk controller. Okay, and then this controller will do the transfer without involving CPU. Okay, and when this is over, then DMA controller will inform the CPU that job is over. Okay, this is one way of doing. Other way could be that this controller can act as a DMA controller, right? As an example here. Okay, so each device here is attached to DMA controller. This is another configuration. So here is a DMA controller with a disk, and then CPU can instruct this guy, to do the transfer and give all the information like start memory address, block address, transfer size, and what is to be done. And this guy disk will then transfer. This controller will control the transfer from disk, uh, control the transfer of data from disk to main memory, and when this job is done, it will inform the CPU about it. Okay, so it's simple. Okay, so same thing we are repeating here. If there is a data incoming from disk, then what is to be done, or some device. Okay, receive interrupt from device. Who will receive? CPU will receive. CPU takes the interrupts and begin transfer. In order to do that, it's not directly involved. It will say DMA controller with the device to place the data from itself, from the disk to certain address in main memory. Okay, so the controller now takes over, does the transfer to main memory, and then CPU of course is free during this time. And once this job is over, the controller with the disk right here, for example, this controller will inform now CPU that job is over. That's it. Similarly for outgoing data, exactly same. So there's nothing, no difference. Okay. Now let's come back to this diagram, right? And this of course is given in the book by O'Halloran, Brandt and O'Halloran, right? So now you see number of buses here. Okay, so now we are reading a disk, a particular disk sector. Okay, so CPU initiate disk read by writing a command. It means that it logical block number, destination memory address number, address to a port address associated with disk controller. So here is a disk controller that's responsible for DMA. So CPU now will tell what all to be done. Okay, and give all this information to disk controller. So what disk controller will do? So okay, this is a simulation. So next step is the disk controller will initiate the transfer to main memory like this, and when this transfer is over, it will inform the CPU about it. That's it. All right, through an interrupt. The CPU will get disturbed, but it will note that job is over. That's it. All right. So now let's look at what is the DMA overhead. Okay, look at the same example. 500 clock cycle overhead for each transfer. Okay, including interrupt. This throughput is 16 Mbps, megabits per second. And then DMA interrupts after transferring 4 kilobytes. Now you can see the difference. Earlier, CPU was interrupted after how many bytes? It was some 16 bytes or something like that, right? Now here is for once whole page is transfer is complete. Okay, DMA will interrupt the CPU. All right. So now let's look at okay. So how many number of interrupts we are having per second? The transfer rate is 16 megabits per second, and one interrupt, and this is or this controller is interrupting CPU after 4 kilobits of transfer. Okay, it will say that now one page transfer is over. Okay, so it means that we will have 4,000 interrupts per second, and each interrupt take 500 cycles. So we'll have 2 million cycles will go in handling interrupts in a second, or this request in a second. Okay, and this we can see that percentage is just 0.2%. Okay, so that is the reason most of the processors today have DMA. Now you can see how DMA happens in different computers. You can actually look at the configuration of your laptop and see whether disk is doing DMA. This DMA controller sits in the disk itself, or there's a common controller. You can look at different configuration, possibly in different devices. There's three things we have discussed. First was polling. CEO is going out every few minutes to see if the courier guy is there, because he does not want to miss out on the courier, because courier guy will run back. I mean, will go back without delivering. Second thing is that courier guy is coming and interrupting. It will make a it will bells or ring a bell, or maybe give a call or whatever, right? So the CEO will be disturbed, interrupted, and will go out and pick up the packet and come back. Okay, third thing is that CEO will this whenever there is a courier coming in, then courier of course will disturb the CEO. CEO will in turn tell the secretary or assistant to go and pick up. Secretary will go and do whatever it wants to do. It will take whatever time, and then when it's picked up, it will inform the CEO that I have received the packet. If CEO has to send something, okay, it can just tell secretary to send it, and when secretary sends that thing, it will just inform the CEO that it has been sent. That's all the process, right? So the least overhead for the CEO is in the third case, which is corresponds to DMA, direct memory access. Okay, all right. Now, okay, so Ethernet is also treated as IO. Okay, now Ethernet here, the amount of data to be transferred is huge, and also it's more complex. So instead of simple DMA, we have something called IO processor. Okay, so it's a heavier DMA controller. IO processor is heavier DMA controller that executes also instructions. It can be programmed to do more complex transfers, and like programmable network card. All right. So we'll not go into detail of IO this mechanism, but just remember that DMA is very simple mechanism. It can do only few things, but if you want more complex tasks, okay, then this DMA controller can be more intelligent. Okay, it can do more tasks, or it can run a program by itself, right? And so on. All right. Okay, to summarize, okay, IO, see, without IO mechanism, we cannot use disk. Okay, so disk is, and disk in part of memory hierarchy, okay, starting from cache. Now, of course, we have registers, cache, various levels of cache. Then we have RAM, random access memory or main memory. Okay, and then we have disk. All this that we have seen up to this point is volatile. Okay, only disk is non-volatile. So long-term memory comes only from main disk. So IO gives computers long-term memory. Okay, in apart from that, it allows, IO allows the CPU to interact with external world or computers with external world. Okay, but we have seen these devices can be of various data speeds. Okay, and more than 8 order of magnitude difference is there. It means that the mechanism should be simple enough to handle all this. Okay, and then we have seen different mechanisms. We started by polling, then we have looked at interrupt mechanism, and third that we have looked at is most effective is called DMA. Okay, and we have looked at how disk actually do transfer using DMA. All right, that's all we have studied. So it's very simple.
So I have a doubt.
Yes.
So suppose now the CPU wants to it wants something from the disk, so it will tell the DMA to bring that. But suppose it wants that thing for this particular instruction, which it is executing at the moment. So for this time, he'll have to. I mean, the CPU will have to wait for all the time taken by the DMA. No? So it will be same again as the 2.5% of the time instead of 0.4%.
So, but CPU can do something else at that point in time. Okay, so you have
Okay,
done
so
the
the
content. Suppose you want a data, you have done, say, for example, load word. Okay, so to say register S1, some from some address, right, which is address of basically address in address space, and it corresponds to a 4 bytes, right, 32 bits, and this is not in the cache, it's not in the main memory, right? Then it has to be brought from secondary memory or disk. So disk will do transfer to main memory and to the cache. From there it will go to cache. So basically now second time, when this is executed, we can get the data. But at this point in time, when this is not available in main memory or cache, then there will be a what? There will be an exception raised. Okay, and as a result of exception, this data transfer will happen that we have discussed just now. But at this point in time, when it knows that there is, there is data has to be brought in, what OS will do is responsibility of OS. See, note that uh, that the data path or the processor has no intelligence of its own. It even doesn't know that this fault has happened, right? It doesn't know. It has just made a request, and after that OS takes over. Okay, now OS will do context switching. It will bring in another process, right? Because so overall, when but from the process perspective, if you're talking only from the process perspective, that is interrupted. Of course, it will take the same time, but there will be context switch. CPU will do something else. Is it? Is
okay,
it?
sir.
Is it? Am I able to answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so from single process perspective, of course, it has to wait until data is available after all this DMA transfer, etc., etc. But from a processor perspective or computer perspective, there It's running multiple programs, multiple processes, so context switch happen. And when this data is available, interrupt comes to the CPU, and actually its OS will do context switching, not really CPU. So we in general say that same program will be executed, but whose responsibility it is? This responsibility of OS to do the context switching at this point in time. Okay, which we'll study when we will study OS in the next semester.